Hi everyone, this is Nordic Brit. I just wanted to post a quick update. On Monday of this week, it is the first Monday of the third month in Sweden, which is when we have this alarm test in the country. It's for emergencies and invasions. There's a lot of people who actually don't know about this, so this is something that I thought would be good to mention. Basically what this is basically a test of the emergency alarm system, and they do this every 3 months on the first Monday. So it's March and this is the first Monday for that. This should be used in collaboration with a special booklet, which I'm going to show you in a minute, which basically demonstrates what you should do in different situations. Also, in the last few years, Sweden, for geopolitical reasons, has basically been upping the drills and emergency preparedness. So it's a really good idea if you live in Sweden, or if your life is going to be affected by things that Sweden do, that you take this into consideration. I'm going to move the camera over to a book and I'm going to show you that and explain to you what this book does, and I'm going to put a link in the description for this.
So this is the booklet that the Swedish government have handed out. This is a copy that I've printed from the web. This is available in multiple languages. I've printed this out on some semi-waterproof paper and I've put the booklet together myself so that I can keep it within my backpack, which I do keep it with me all the time. My version is in English because some studies have shown that in times of emergencies, it's better to use your native or most commonly spoken language, because in times of crisis you can forget stuff. So this one is printed out in English, and my partner has one in Spanish, and so on. So if you're going to print one of these out, I would recommend using the language you're most comfortable with. The first page is pretty simple. It's just got a list of contents so you can quickly find stuff, and some information from the government about why this brochure was produced and how you can help use it. It's pretty much just as simple as that. The next two pages basically just cover, what would you do if even the smallest things happen. It mentions here about if IT systems go down, if the heating stops working, or if you can't fill up your car, for example, and how you should try to prepare not just for the really large problems, but also really consider that your normal life can be interrupted by very small things. If public transport stops and you rely on public transport, then what are you going to do? So it talks about emergency preparedness in the case of small things as well as the larger things. The next thing that you'll find is about information. This is a really good point to put in this type of book because during times of crisis, key and correct information is absolutely crucial to survival for people, as well as what to do in certain situations. So this talks about how you should look for correct information from the government and the agencies that support them, as well as not trusting certain other information so that you can make sure you're making the decisions based on the correct information at the time. The next page talks about what you should do in the event of a terror attack. It talks about what you can call, about avoiding groups of people, and so on. So basically, this is pages of advice, what they're advising you to do based on research and studies of terror attacks around the world. And they basically are putting here the best case things that you can possibly do in those events. The next part of the booklet goes on to Sweden's total defense system. This is basically explaining what happens in times of crisis when it comes to war. If Sweden is invaded, it talks about their total defense strategy. It talks about the military defense, the civil defense, and how people contribute to that. People who are living in Sweden during certain times are required to support the stability of the country, and this is not just necessarily in arms conflicts, but also in civil duties, so that everyone can contribute to basically making sure that everyone is safe and that certain societal functions run. This is basically explaining that and how that works. Page 10 and 11 of this booklet actually just goes through some checklists that you can do. This is not the checklist that I use when I leave. However, this is really helpful to tell other people. It's also really helpful for most people, depending on your preparedness plans and various other factors, size of family and so on. These might differ, but pretty much this is a good basic thing to look for, because this is not just talking about SHTF scenarios, but we're talking about how to deal with food. This is talking about home preparedness. For example, it talks here about different types of foods to store. For example, if you're using certain foods and you're going to run out of money maybe, or the shops might run out of a supply. It talks about making sure to tick off the things that you've got in times of crisis, so that you can go out and say, okay, we need these things. It talks about water, basically storing water in extra bottles and stuff like that, warmth, anything else, communications. It talks about having radios, so if you've got a car radio, for example, information about what radio stations to contact. So this is just home preparedness tips, and the idea is to tick through these during certain crises, and they have more of these kind of sheets available at this website. This is called Din Säkerhet. This basically means your security in Swedish, and you can go here and download more forms. Some of them are in Swedish and some are in English and some are in other languages also. Now we get on to the point of the document, which is what happens during certain states of crisis. So this page talks about if Sweden is attacked. In Sweden's law, in the constitution, if Sweden is attacked, resistance is required. They talk about an absolute policy of never basically giving up. That's what this statement says down here. Basically, it talks about if you were told information about that Sweden will give up, that the information is false and you should treat it as false. The country is basically, the constitution doesn't allow for this, so that's pretty much what this is saying. It's talking about the heightened state of alert here and what you should be paying attention to, and where you should get your information from to ensure that you're getting the correct information, and how to respond for things like logistics, food, supplies, armed conflicts, where it's safe, where it's not. One of the really great preparedness systems in Sweden is the alarm system. This has been in place since World War II and it's still used today. This is, I'm going to put the name up in the video in Swedish of what this is called, but basically this system is designed for informing the public about different disasters and scenarios. This video is coming out later than the intro of this video due to work and so on, but actually this alarm went off yesterday, actually about 3 a.m. in the morning, over a water crisis that happened in the next province, which we announced about it here in this province, about contamination of water. And for a couple of days they've been told not to even drink or even boil the water. So this alarm went off at 3 in the morning, and then a SMS was sent out, as well as the app that we use, which is called Kreis app or something like that. I'm going to put that link in the description as well. And basically this is telling you, like, don't drink the water. So this is about important public service announcements. So signal for 7 seconds, 14 seconds of silence, 7 seconds, 14 seconds of silence. That means it's a public service announcement. If the unbroken signal goes for 30 seconds, then the danger is over. So this is for important warnings, basically. And it tells you what to do in those systems, for example. It tells you when the system is tested also. It's tested, like I said, every Monday, March, June, September, and December, which is every third month. If the emergency alarm here, this talks about emergency systems. So we're talking about, potential, air raids, invasions, basically, air raid warnings, 30 seconds alarm with 15 seconds break. That means emergency. Sweden has hundreds and thousands of shelters and bunkers all over the country, under apartment blocks, schools, other public buildings. It's really a good place to go. They're maintained mostly across the country. They are upgrading and maintaining even more as of late, but it basically tells you what to do, what to look for, the sign to look for example. This is basically mostly in, if you go down to the basement of apartment buildings, you will find a sign like this, and then you can go in there, and normally these contain the base systems like air filtration and stuff like that, and water, but this is what to do in this case. And the last pages basically talk about, educating yourself about how to do things, getting yourself an extra phone, for example, extra SMS card, something like that, extra SIM card or something like that, about getting involved in your local area, stuff like that, any important information you want to write down. And then at the back, we just have some important phone numbers in Sweden, the emergency one. We're talking about you can call this to get information on serious incidents, police matters that are not ongoing, that are not happening to you right now. That's not an emergency, but ones that are ongoing. Healthcare advice, Din here. This is the Your Security website. This is a really good source of some information. Krisinformation.se. This is basically the same as the app, and this is a really good place to find out what's going on. So yeah, you should really have these ones all the time. If you don't want to have a physical copy of the book, you could just put this on your phone in a PDF format. I printed this out on some waterproof paper, so I have this with me all the time. And that's this book. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this gives you some information. I've had questions about this before, and I'm going to put the link in the description. I think everyone in Sweden should have a look at this and have it as an addition to your other preparedness activities and various other stuff, especially if you're new to Sweden, you don't know how that they're going to respond to certain stuff. This really does show the information to you, and it does show you that the government is pushing preparedness as an agenda, geopolitical reasons and so on. So it's really important to look at this and to keep this with you, or at least revise it to some degree.